And we had this happen just minuscule times this year, but they won't sit with the offensive line. They'll go right to the iPad, wherever it's at, and sit down. Well, that might be where the receivers are or whatever. And then it's like, no, get your ass over here. Like, we need to talk about this.
On today's episode of the Left Hash Call, we are joined by two offensive line coaches here at the AFCA convention down here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We have my good friend Alex Boyer and my good friend Quincy Griffith. How are we doing today, fellas?
Fantastic.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah, how's Charlotte been for you guys so far this year?
Good.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Not too bad. I mean, we were here last year, so kind of know what to expect. So that's nice. But just been walking around trying to find old buddies and hang out.
What's kind of the biggest things that you guys look forward to with the AFCA, specifically the convention? Obviously, it's in different spots, and some people like some different places more than others. But what's kind of been the best part about this journey down here?
I mean, I would say just getting a chance to connect with guys that I used to work with, like Q, and seeing those guys, because you spend a ton of time as coaches together, and then guys move, take different jobs. Then it's just an opportunity for us to get together and kind of hang out for a weekend. So, I mean, that's what I look the most forward to.
Yeah, just seeing people you haven't seen. You see them once a year, and you see them at the convention, So, I mean, Alex and I had dinner 2 weeks ago, so we had to come to Charlotte to hang out again.
Yeah, right.
But just seeing people like you don't usually see, and you can catch up because you can always, talk to them on the phone or text them or something like that, but it's not the same. So,
right. Yeah. So, obviously you guys are both offensive line coaches, and, that's kind of the main part of this show that I want to get into, but specifically for you guys, what do you think makes, the offensive line room so different than any other position group?
We have not zero chance, but almost zero chance of getting the football. I think that's a big difference, because every other position on the field has a chance to do something with the football. So we dislike the football so much we give it away every play by snapping it, and I think that's something that's unique, as well as we don't really have statistics, at least positive ones. And I think that's something that's very unique as well as far as football. Plus, offensive line is just it's a very giving position, and there's 5, and like no one says, how's their offensive linemen? It's like, how's their offensive line?
Yeah, that's true. No, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, going back on your point of, not touching the ball. I mean, that Simpson is like it's the most touchdowns my position group has ever scored. I've coached
that's right.
tight ends and running backs, at different times.
Let those guys rip, huh?
Yeah, so find a way to put the ball in the end zone. That's what it takes. But
Right.
I mean, a lot to what Q said. It's just a special room because you don't get a lot of the reward that like he was talking about with other position groups on either side of the ball. I think another thing that makes it so special is, I mean, you got 5 guys on the field. Most college football programs have about 20, 25 guys, depending on how deep your room is. You get all these different personalities that come together, and it doesn't mesh at the beginning because everybody's trying to fill each other out, especially the newcomers. But when you get to the end of the season, it's its own organism, its own ecosystem. It's a lot of really cool relationships that, as a coach, you get to build with other guys, but you also get to see those relationships begin to culminate between players too. And I think that part's incredibly special.
I think one of the things about, the offensive line room specifically is that if you are, offensive line coaches specifically, is if you haven't spent time coaching offensive line or being an offensive lineman, I think it's the most complicated position to coach from a technique standpoint. Would you guys agree with that? And because I think you see a lot of coordinators maybe struggle, not necessarily calling the run game or whatever, but if they're trying to teach any of the specifics of offensive line play, do you guys think there's any truth to that as far as like the complexity from it? Because like I guess I play quarterback, so I don't necessarily think about that too much, but like it's a complex position to play. Like it's very technically important to be sound there. But offensive line, like it's totally foreign to me at times with what you guys do.
I mean, I guess it's hard for me to say because I played offensive line since I was 7 years old. So like that's the home that I grew up in. And so like all the complexities that, other positions might see it as, I mean, that's just what I know, right? And to the inverse, like I've coached tight ends, I've coached running backs, coached offensive line. I think it'd be more complicated for me or more complex to coach, a position like quarterbacks, right? With the reads and coverages and understanding that part. And even tight end, trying to understand like the different, not necessarily run blocking techniques, but like you get into the pass game part, right? That's not necessarily a world that I live a ton in and talking about, the technique and in the top of the routes and stuff like that. Like I had to kind of force myself into that world this year with also coaching tight ends, but I think it's all relative, right? I mean, depending on, the position that you played, if you played college football or if you played football at all, I think it's all relative to the position that you know. And if you played multiple, then you got lucky. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it and understanding, the technique part, and what your fit is into the scheme and how that's going to get addressed versus different fronts. But I don't know. That's just something that I always did, right? So
Yeah, I think technique is huge, and that's becoming kind of a buzzword sometimes too, which is good because it is very, very important. But I mean, same thing with Alex. Like ever since I could walk, I wore a stripe on my helmet in youth football. So, for those listening, that means you cannot touch the football. You have to be a lineman there. But so I grew up in that world too, and I've coached tight ends and I've coached defense. I haven't coached any other position on offense explicitly outside of tight ends or O line, but I've coached linebackers and I've coached defensive line. And every position you're going to want to be technically sound. You're going to want to be, know the scheme, how it relates to you and stuff like that. And I think when people say that, maybe from like your vantage point, as a former quarterback and stuff like that, and working with wideouts as well, um, and then to what Alex said earlier, there's 5 guys. So, you teach guards the same way, right and left. But as it pertains to the defense, whether it's to the boundary, to the field, what defense they're going, like that's the stuff that I think trips non-offensive line people up. Maybe is like it's that, but to me, it's like there's 5 guys, but you're in a way you're coaching them all the same because your left tackle could be your right guard and vice versa. Hopefully, I mean that's my philosophy, but
right.
but yeah, you got to be technical and you got to know this or that. But I wouldn't dare to start to try and go coach quarterbacks. I don't know if I would like it. So
You guys go through this, all the time as offensive line coaches, but how important would you guys say that sixth offensive lineman is for your team? Because, obviously, you don't have necessarily, maybe Q you do, or you've been around this, but like you don't have like a specific, hey, this is our backup left tackle. This is our backup center. This is our backup right guard. Like, boy, I know you specifically, it's like, all right, we got the sixth best guy. Let's make sure that we get him the ball, like, or not get him the ball. Let's make sure we get him on the field and we'll just Jenga this thing up where we have to. How do you guys manage that, I guess, from both of you guys' perspectives?
yeah, I think it's imperative to have a guy like that, and I think that a guy like that only makes your room better. I also think guys like that sometimes it's a little bittersweet because they're such good players in the sense of they know what they're doing and they know where they're supposed to be and where they're at, but there's something that's keeping them out of being a starting 5. You know what I mean? And I've been at every place I've been at so far. We've had our 6th best lineman is our 2nd best everywhere, but he's not our 1st best anywhere type thing. You know what I mean? And we had it this past year and we had it at Iowa like 2 years. And we were very fortunate to have a couple guys that could play in different spots. And then like at Wayne, we had a guy and he came in and he had to play, started a bunch of games in the middle of the year, but there was a reason he wasn't the starter probably at the start of the year. And, but when he went in, you're not worried about him skipping a beat. So I think it's immensely important, if not more important than having like just an absolute standout at one position. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because offensive line is the most, the interior is the most physical position on the field, and you're more than likely, hardly ever you're gonna go the whole season start to finish with the same five guys the entire time. I know I have yet to do that. I don't know about you
Yeah,
either,
no,
so.
I mean, I think we got pretty lucky this year. I mean, we had a guy go down during camp, but we got him back and we stayed pretty healthy, with our top end. But I mean, yeah, I mean, to Q's point, I mean, it's really important to have that guy ready to roll. We were in a situation this year where we rotated, our sixth guy in, um, and tried to play the hot hand because I don't love rotating offensive
No,
linemen.
I
I
don't
think
either.
that's a position that, for better or for worse, you want, those five guys that as long as you can, those five guys out there to play the whole four quarters. But sometimes you got to rotate and find, you got five and a half guys, six guys that you feel like should be on the field. You got to find that best combination of five. So, I mean, that was a situation that we ran into this year. But I mean, having a six man is incredibly important, especially with, I don't know how you guys would prep like on Fridays. We would get together as a staff offensively and have, contingency plans for all of the position groups. Obviously, the first one being the offensive line. So I don't know if we had. It'd be tough to say we had a clear cut six man that it was guaranteed that he would go in. Um, if any of those five starters went in or went out, like we had a contingency plan for the interior guys and a contingency plan for like our tackles. Just because we have some young guys that are a little bit they have different strengths, and some guys are better on the edge, or at
Mhm.
least I think they're better on the edge, and some guys were just better on the interior. So that was always my thing. There's not like a hard set, or I haven't truly had like a hard set six man that it's just like no matter what, like he's gonna be the guy that goes in. I think a lot of it for us um, had to do with, if this position got hurt during the game, like this is a rotation that we're gonna work in. Because again, it's our job to find that best combination of five guys. So, but I mean, that six man, you want to get into 12, or sorry, like a heavy personnel, you got
Mhm.
six offensive linemen on the field. Then you have that six man, that top dog, you slot them in wherever it makes sense.
Yeah, it's part of the chess match. You know, you never know what's going to happen, this or that, and some guys are going to have to go in and just hope. Part of, like you said, part of our job is to make sure they're ready to go and
Yeah.
ready to do what they need to do and not have a drop off. And you're always going to have some type of drop off in whether it's a physicality thing or whether it's a know your place thing, because there's something that's hindering that person, whatever it is, from being the guy in the first place. But you got to be able to just prepare for it and do it the best you can. And I mean, me personally, I will always err on the side of probably a guy who knows what he's doing more than a guy who's an ass kicker in that role. But at the end of the day, like, um, you want to get your best guys on the field and
Yeah.
however whatever that takes. So
No doubt.
because I've had it the other way too, where that guy who comes in is an ass kicker, so it's high yield, or high risk, high reward type thing sometimes. But then that's your job as a coach. You got to coach them up and have them continue to do better, and so
Yeah. And you also,
and people might surprise you.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely. And there's also, a little bit of like a chemistry thing too.
mm-hmm.
It's like you're going to get a little
Absolutely.
bit of a drop off there because those five guys have been working together reps on reps on reps throughout the week, throughout the season. And then you just plug in a guy who may not have been getting rotation
Yep.
reps with that first group. And so it's like now you got to, depending on what position it is, like I played center, like if I had a different right guard come out there, it's like, well, I got to figure out like how he's going to operate and like what our combos are going to feel like. So there's always that,
Yeah.
a little bit of that
I
change
had
as
that
well.
come out this year. One game. I thought, you think the guy you're putting in is the one you have to worry about because he's going in, he's new, he's different. But an incident we had come up this year, and it was just brief, but it was the guy who was out had been out there start every game, was the one who was having communication issues with the new guy. It wasn't the new guy giving the issue; it was the other way around. So that was a new avenue for me this year, but it got resolved really quick. But I just never even thought of it. Like, you always think the guy you're putting in, he's the one you got to worry about.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the case for for a few series this year in our season. But like I said, it got resolved very quickly. So
One thing I've heard you talk about, Boyer, is you want to put guys like next to guys you trust. Like even if it's to start the year, like you got better guys at different spots. Like when you had Joe Bream, I remember you would always say like, "Hey, I want to put this guard who maybe doesn't understand it maybe as well," versus like I don't want to go put him next to, not specific, but like I don't want to put him next to the left tackle because he's already worried about so much on his own. I'd rather put him next to, this right tackle because he's got so much more figured out. Is there, when you're putting together, the group at the start of the year, when you're thinking about that starting five in general, how much of that, like, hey, he's technically he's probably a good guard, but I really need him to play next to this right tackle because we need to make sure they're communicating better than him being just a better right guard than a left guard.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit that goes into that. I would prefer, and this is a spot, and it'll be interesting this upcoming season because the experience in our room is going to go down dramatically. But I would always prefer. I mean, you got to be a puzzle piece in there, right? You always got to be the right fit. And I don't necessarily have preference for guards. Like if you play guard, you can play right or left, right? The roles, switch up a little bit, in your fit, and especially in gap scheme and stuff like that. But I do, like, if I don't feel comfortable, he's the best guy, but I like the knowledge part isn't necessarily where we need it to be. And I got to continue to get him coached up and to get him to understand what his fit is. Like I would prefer to put him, next to or between guys that are really comfortable with the scheme and understanding it. So if he gets screwed up or lost in it, then he's got two guys next to him, or he's got a guy to one of his sides that can square him up. So that's always been something that's important to me. I ultimately, like if a guy doesn't know it, then I just got to do a better job of teaching him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and sometimes it's the kid's just young. I mean, coming into college football as a freshman, I mean, that was a huge shock to me because I was a cocky Texas kid coming up to Nebraska playing NAI football, and so I was like, oh, I'm gonna rock this thing, and then you go out there and the speed's way different. So, scheme, speed, all that stuff, it's gonna take some time. So, if there's that situation that comes up where we got a true freshman who is talented, still needs to learn a little bit more, then I want to set him next to a guy that really knows it and is really comfortable with what we're trying to do.
And I'm curious for you, Q, like, obviously working with some really talented guys at Iowa and then obviously now at Drake. I'm assuming, you kind of get your pick of the litter a lot of times at a place like that, whereas you don't necessarily feel like, do you feel like the drop off is still really prevalent even at those high level FBS schools with, obviously like Iowa, that's like the premier place for offensive line play. But do you feel like, there is still like, hey, from 5 to 6 to, 6 to 7 is, sorry.
Yeah, no, I know you mean like just the difference in like the starting 5 versus the next.
Right. Even at those high levels.
Yeah, absolutely. There's drop off. Because everywhere you play, whether it's, Ankeny High School, Wartburg, Simpson, Midland, Wayne, I'm just naming places we've all been involved with, Iowa, whatever, there's still that level of, like Alex said, going from a high school kid to a college kid and that game speed. And we've all been there. You can practice it, and then when you're out there, it's completely different. And that level is, I would even say, magnetized at that level even more, because there's certain teams at lower levels in college, and you guys understand this because we've all been involved with it, that it's like, okay, not that we know we're going to win, but like we know we're physically better than they are. And that's not the case in the Big Ten at that level for the most part. And so to your question, yeah, I think there is a big drop off between that's why if you can have 8 guys, like you're doing really well. You can have 8 guys that you think you're prepared to be put in the game at any level. Like that's a good offensive line. If you could have 7, that's awesome. But there is that drop off, and it's a physical maturity thing. It's a mental maturity thing more than anything. because you've got the weight of not only the team, but you've got the weight of the stadium, you got a weight of the fan base, you got a weight of social media because of everything that's so microscopic now with everything. And those are factors that as a coach you have to deal with, and at every level, at every position. But at that highest level, especially like the maturity level physically and mentally, um, between, especially at offensive line, and I think you've seen that the last 2 years, 2.5, 3 years at Iowa of if you look at the guys have played a lot of games. And I think there's a big reason for their success as of recently and over time at Iowa with the offensive line. It's guys that have played, like they have really good O-lines because they let them play and they work and they make mistakes and then they learn from them and they grow. And then like, I think they're 3 seniors at Iowa this year, both had a combined like 125 or 140 starts. You know what I mean?
Right.
And last year, the 2 seniors that graduated both had over 100 starts between the 2 of them, and just, it's not always pretty, you know what I mean? But at the same time, that's a part of the journey. And the same thing with you guys at Simpson. Like you guys ran the ball really well this year, and yes, you have a good running back, but a lot of that's due to, in my opinion, you were a more veteran group up front this year.
No doubt.
You know what I mean? And we were similar at Drake. We had 3 guys that had played a ton of football, and then we had 2 guys that hadn't played any. And now next year we have 4 guys that have played a ton of football, and we'll have 1 guy who really hasn't played any. So it's just, if you can mature and grow through games like that, that's only going to help you. And if you can get guys into games, sometimes they might not be ready for it, or you might not think they're ready for it. But like I said, they might surprise you. We had a young man who ended up playing 60 snaps in our playoff game against South Dakota this year. And he played 13 snaps the entire season prior to that. And prior to this year, he hadn't played since his junior year of high school.
Wow.
And he did a great job. He did a fantastic job in that last game. But he showed it in practice, and he showed it with his attitude and his daily habits. And so when he went out there and did a great job, it wasn't a surprise in that sense. You know what I mean? So, but then you got other guys, and I know Alex knows a few of the guys that I could be talking about, that sometimes you throw them out there because they're going to take on, what is the quote from the guy from Montana? Take on hell with a squirt gun. But they make mistakes, and those mistakes cost your team, but they make them at 110 miles an hour. And those guys are great too. It's just learning from those mistakes and growing and getting better. So
one of my favorite games that I was at this year was when you guys played Moorhead at the end of the year, and you guys got into 13 personnel, just ran the freaking rock, and obviously sealed that thing with a big long run at the end of the game. I know, like, coordinators specifically, like when they're hitting on the pass game, it's just like over and over and over again. Like I've felt that, like myself, just even being like in the press box, not even calling the plays. But do you feel that as like run game coordinators, like when it's just hitting over and over and over again? Like obviously you guys are not necessarily once calling it like on the rip, but like obviously you guys are coordinating that thing, off the the playing field. But do you guys kind of get into that rhythm throughout the course of a game, or what's kind of the that feeling when the run game's hitting on all cylinders?
Yeah, I mean it's tricky because I know for us, I mean we have been like a really big tight zone team. In those games where we start off the game, run the ball really well. It's like, all right, it's hitting. It's like, now while that's happening, you have to anticipate when they're going to start to take that away, and what are your answers going to be, off of that, right? So I like counter because you get the same movement to the front side, but then you're bringing some different action off the backside. So I don't know if that's just maybe me just thinking a couple steps ahead, but it is a good feeling. Like when you're breaking off some runs and it might start off as 3-4 yards and it starts to turn into more. It's like, yeah, we've got control of the line of scrimmage, but it's also like, now it's time to anticipate, like at some point, if the defensive coordinator or that coaching staff's doing their job, their job is to try to take that away to give themselves an advantage. And it's anticipating, like, all right, how are they going to take that away? And then what are our answers going to be to that, so we can continue to press the ball vertically down the field on the ground. So that's the way that I look at it.
Yeah, and you know, everyone's like, oh, it's such an O-line guy. I want to run the ball all the time. It's like, well, if our best players are running back, and why wouldn't we give them the ball more, you know? So it just, but to me, it's, um, there's an attitude when it comes to run the ball, and we preach it. We practice it. And, when guys want to go and get going and get after things and stuff like that, you know, we ran the ball. I don't even know how many times we rushed that game. But you know, first play of the game, we fumbled on the 5-yard line or whatever it was. But if you pause it, you know, every play you could pause and be, oh, it would have been gone, but we had it blocked up really well. It was just a miscommunication in the backfield. And so it's easy to be like, oh, the last time we ran the ball, we fumbled. So like, we can't do it again. And, Kyle is really good about, you know, trusting what we do and what we're good at and stuff like that. And here taking input and stuff like that. And so when you're running it well, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? Like, you ask about the feeling, it was like we could call whatever run play we wanted to, as long as we didn't get in our own way that game. And, and that sets up your shots and your deep passes and stuff like that. And we needed a few of them, you know, on third downs and stuff like that. But, like if just keep running the ball. Like, if they cannot stop it, like I've been on, when I was a linebackers coach at Illinois Wesleyan, we played Carthage, and Carthage ran the same 2-back power play to the boundary against us, I think 6 plays in a row for like 58 yards. And, we couldn't do anything. We brought 3 different pressures. We went back on film, and our will linebacker was getting caught, and he was fitting in the wrong gap because they were bringing a guy over and adding an extra gap, and he like was playing the gap pre-snap, whatever it was. Something we, as a better coach, should have noticed in the game, but I didn't have my iPad because we didn't have.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you guys about, because, you know, from the press box, and you guys have both done this in the box, but like as an offensive line coach, and as like me most recently, I've only coached from the press box. You know, you see, you know, the big picture, right? What you would see on the wide shot on film. But when it comes to now the tight shot with film mid game, how crucial has that been to like get that thing, you know, obviously doing that in the middle of the game now, has that been a huge help for you guys, or how's that been?
I think it has. I think it now, I don't look at the iPad probably as much as I should. Now that I'm on the field, when you're up in the press box, when I was up in the press box, it's right in front of me. So it's all I did, you know? So like, but it's a huge help, because if there is a misfit, or if there is why did that run work, or why did that run not work, or even, I think it's best looking at blitzes personally. I think that's the biggest use I have for it. But it's like, I don't have to worry. Like, I don't have, what the hell happened? Can I cuss on this?
Yes.
You know, what the hell happened? I'll just watch it.
Right.
You know, so it's like,
Yeah, there's no more like, oh, coach, I saw this.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
I still ask the guys, and we still get on the whiteboard, because I want to see and communicate to what they're saying and what they're seeing. But then we can just go watch the iPad and talk about it. And I think it's transformed how players are too, because our players aren't as much of like, oh, I thought it was this guy or this guy. Usually right now, when I ask guys, I think he was here, I think he was there. They're not as much like, oh, he was there. No, he was there, you know, because they know they can just go back and look at it as well. And so I think that's a big deal. And I think it's transformed just, I think, how you can go about things on the sideline, you know, like I'm saying this kind of to be funny, but you can almost, like, after a drive, kick your feet up and, you know, have a drink and watch the game.
Yeah,
You know, so like, but keeping guys off, you know, relaxed and loose and ready to go and stuff like that.
Do you worry about the kids being iPad kids at all?
Absolutely.
I don't know how it is. Like, I feel like I have to like fight my guys back. Like, oh, coach, can I have the? I'm like, no, dude, I want to address something. And it's nice too, because I mean, our guys, you know, I try to give and take feedback. It's like, oh, coach, can you go to, you know, this play where we ran this? Like, I want to see what happened, because I just want to see it. Or they ask a specific question, And so that's nice too, is like, oh, this was our half slide pass protection.
Yep.
It's like you got a little too jumpy from the start and overset it. That's how you got beat back inside. That sounds really simple and obvious, but sometimes guys just
Yeah.
need to see that.
Absolutely.
Right. And you can have like coach or like Q said, you can have like a little mini film meeting back there, on the sideline on the chairs. So I'm still trying to figure it out. Like I'm not used to having an iPad and being able to go through the
Yeah.
film. So I'm still trying to perfect my craft there. Um, but it's been a huge help. Like,
Absolutely, yeah.
especially trying to figure out, like you said, like what just happened on the field.
It's definitely benefited more than it's hurt. But to your question about being iPad happy, absolutely, because you want to talk to your guys and you want to correct what needs to be corrected. And Alex said it best. Like I love it when guys are like, "Hey, can we watch this play, or can we watch whatever?" Because unless it's something that's drastic or really really bad, like just completely miss whatever, usually they come over and they're like, "Hey, that was me. I messed that one up." But unless they're kind of spooked, I don't like just sitting there and being like, all right, let's watch the plays, let's watch whatever. Like what's important to me when they come on the sideline is they talk about what they saw, any mistakes we need to address, they get off their feet, and then we talk about it as a group. Because if we got one guy over here who's watching the game on the iPad, or a guy over here who's looking down at that, but he's not looking at me, like that's an issue. That's where you get off levels and off pace. Or you got guys like, I think one thing with iPads too is sometimes offensive linemen, and we had this happen just minuscule times this year, but they won't sit with the offensive line. They'll go right to the iPad wherever it's at and sit down. Well, that might be where the receivers are or whatever. And then it's like, no, get your ass over here. Like, we need to talk about this. And, I think that starts with me, number one, just setting the tone. But at the same time, is like having that available to some guys, and that's what they're used to. I think that can sometimes be not a good thing if you don't, nip it in the butt, or if you don't do it the right way. So
How quickly do you go back? So after a drive, no matter what the outcome is of that drive, how quickly do you go back to your offensive line group?
I usually wait until the ball's punted.
Okay.
Yeah. Knowing that when like we don't have the ball anymore, because there could be a penalty, there could be a muff, there could be something like that. So I usually, if I can, I'll watch the iPad if I need to while that's going on, the punt's going on. If not, I'll wait till the ball's punted, and then I'll come over. That gives them time to sit down, get situated, take their helmet off, because then it gives us time to take a breath, relax, and do whatever too. So, plus usually those transitions we didn't have a ton this year, but we had more than I would like. Like we have the media timeouts, and that's usually when they occur too. So I want them to come over, sit down, take a breath, talk to each other. Because if I'm standing there, my expectation is they're looking at me and I'm going to talk to them. But if I'm not there, I want them talking to each other. And a lot of times those problems will be solved before I even get there.
Yeah.
And so giving them time to be with each other, just like in meetings, like throughout the year. Like I never go into if a meeting starts at 3, I always go in at like 3:02. Because like I give them time, let them talk, let them organically converse, let them talk about whatever they want. So that thing, like that's just a part of them hanging out, them being a group, being a tight knit group. So it's the same thing on the sideline.
Yeah.
Like if shit's going crazy or whatever, like let them calm down, let them point fingers at each other, let them get at each other's throats a little bit, okay? Because I'd rather have that than one guy sitting there, looking at the ground in his own head.
Yeah.
Let the emotions fly a little bit, and then it can be brought back down and calm down and then go back out. Hopefully they're not doing any of that stuff, because that's how you train, how you practice. But let it all settle, then talk about what you had. Because if you go in, because I had that a few times this year, I went over there guns a-blazing, because I let my emotions get too much of me, and it only hurt us later in that game with them and how they were on the field, off the field, stuff like that. So learned my lesson the hard way.
No, I love that. It's great. Yeah, I love this because it just, you guys just rip this thing and just start talking ball. It's freaking awesome. So, when you guys first started coaching or first started playing offensive line specifically, what do you think has changed the most, about the position in general? If any.
Well, I mean, for me, I played at a big school here in Iowa, but we ran a lot of we were like a split back veer type team, a wing tee growing up, as well as it's just like my line coach has been there forever, and he's a smaller dude who's really tough and really hard nosed. And for me, like offensive lineman, like I played next to a guard my junior year who was 170 pounds, but he was first team All State. And then growing up, that was like Ankeny always had small offensive linemen, but they were just tough and they were athletic and stuff like that. So to me, like you're asking how it's changed, I think over time, and high school is a little different because you work with what you get type thing. But over time, I think offensive line culturally, if you would, the thought is you have to be as big as possible, and you have to be, huge and have a lot of whatever and this and that, which is true. You want guys that are big and strong. Like every position, you want guys that are big and strong. Coach Woodley always says, light or heavyweights beat up lightweights, and he's not wrong about that. But at the same time, like if I see a high school O lineman who's 6'2", 6'3", over 300 pounds, sometimes to me that's almost alarming because it's like, okay, they might be too big and they can't move. And I think that's something that's changed. It used to be you want tall, athletic guys that can move and run and do that kind of stuff, and it's turned into I want as big a guy as possible that, yeah, they can still move, but maybe not like I maybe would want them to or something like that. And I think it's become cyclical because everyone wants the tall kid they say, oh, he's going to put on 50 pounds over 2 years and be whatever. But it's not like you can just go to the store and get them too. So, but like I look at a guy like Mason Brule.
Yeah.
What did Mason weigh this year?
I think he was 270-ish.
Because I think he was like 230 pounds when I was there.
Well, and
the spring I was there.
He won't mind me talking about this. He was always seesaw.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And there was different reasons for that, but it's
absolutely.
I remember going into last year.
Shout out Mason, by the way.
Yeah,
Alaska's finest.
He's the best. No, but I remember going into like our exit meetings after spring ball, and I was like, dude, like we can't seesaw back down and expect things to go well next year. Like if you want to play at the highest possible level and put out the best possible product, like we need to see you at the weight. And he ended up playing at that weight. So I mean, there's sometimes you're battling that too. Mm-hmm. Like you get.
Yeah.
Like you said, you can't find those tall, lanky kids everywhere.
Yeah.
You get lucky to have one every couple of years.
Or if you do, and they're 220 pounds, there's no guarantee that they're going to be willing to or want to put on that weight. And they're not supposed to be 290 pounds by, the next 6 weeks.
Right.
But if they're 6'5", 220 pounds, they better be 240 by the next, in 6 months.
Yeah.
Or maybe 8 months or whatever it is, and then add another 10 or 15 the next 6 months, and not that is the end all be all, but it's easier to teach a kid to get big, in my opinion, than it is to teach him to be athletic.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's all about finding your fit and what you run schematically too, and that kind of stuff. And to go all the way back to your question, Seth, of what's changed, I just think the expectation of a lineman, I think that's kind of changed a little bit. I think there's a lot more, to put the word, technicians, which is great, versus guys that are just ass kickers. Like being an offensive lineman to me means you want to fight someone. F-word, fight someone.
Can let it fly.
Yeah. Like you want to go brawl. Like you want to take on the other guy, not because you're like your team's going to win, but you want to take on the other guy because you're tougher than he is. And I think that has, been lost a little bit, and everyone's worried about excuse me. Everyone's worried about I got to have this. I got to do that. I got to do this drill. I got to do that drill. I got to, whatever. But at the end of the day, like, you got to be a fighter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I heard a sweet quote from a guy I used to coach wrestling with. He said he teaches his kids that they have to learn how to fight, because if you know how to fight, then you can compete. And then if you know how to compete, then you can win. And I thought that was just a really cool quote, because like that's what it is. You have to learn how to fight, whether it's fighting someone else, okay, or it's fighting just bad habits. And you have to learn how to fight before you can learn how to compete, because that's what competition is. It's fighting for every inch. And then once you can learn how to compete, then you can learn how to win, because you can't win if you can't compete. So
Yeah. And I mean, with the changes in the offensive line too, I think some of it is a reaction. Maybe reaction's not the right word, but like defenses and schematically and the body
Absolutely,
types
yeah.
that they're trying to get onto the field. Like defensive lines now are like those edge rushers are more athletic guys,
and they're leaner and lighter,
Yeah.
but they're way faster. Yeah.
So then it's like the expectation is like, how do we, defend, for lack of a better term, like how do we keep that guy from making plays?
How do we
right?
defend the defenders? Yeah.
So you almost got to match that athleticism, or try to find the guy who can match that athleticism or length, out on the edge, and whatever they put on the interior. So I think a lot of the evolution of the offensive line has been kind of in sync with the trends of defenses as well. So I mean, that getting to that answer, right? That's kind of where I see the offensive line change. I mean, I grew up in Texas. We ran a spread system, so that's traditionally where I've been, is spread. So I only know one style of offense, with a little bit of tweaks there. So it doesn't feel like football's changed a ton, right? The position changed a little bit. So yeah.
One of the things is, I think the fans in the stands is always a fun thing with the O linemen, because they're in running the ball specifically, and they don't know anything about pass pro sometimes, and there's always a lot of misconceptions about like, what does an offensive line room look like, or what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions to maybe the average fan that drive you nuts, or maybe that if you could like tell every fan out there in the world what this is doesn't actually work this way, or actually does work this way. Is there anything that comes to mind with that?
Yeah, the coaching point to block someone is an awful coaching point. That's where I wanted to start.
Well, it's as basically true as you could be. I mean,
right, but
like yelling someone to catch the ball.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
But I get what you're saying, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it gets lost on people who watch as to like how difficult playing offensive line is. I mean, pass protection, a lot of fans, especially when a sack's given up, they can't pass protect. It's like, all right, how about you like backpedal while somebody's sprinting at you, and you try to beat them to whatever point they're trying to get to.
And not knowing where the quarterback's going to be.
Correct.
Well, or knowing where he should be, but not knowing where he is.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then also it's just like, how about you go and will somebody, 2 or 3 yards that doesn't want to be willed that way. They're going to push back against you.
Yeah.
So I think like there's some, and that's a normal thing, right? Like I can go watch hockey, and I'm like, oh, why doesn't the goalie just stop the puck? It's like, well, I don't know what goes into hockey at all, right? Or what it takes to play goalie. So I mean, for fans, I mean, they're watching as people who have, not a ton of experience in it, right? Or maybe they played college football and they love it, but sometimes they get a little too wrapped up in the production of it all and the status of their team and stuff like that. But I mean, they're fans, right?
That's what makes them fans.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not, if we had a bunch of, at Bill Buxton Stadium, if it was just filled with a bunch of old line coaches saying stuff, then I'd probably be like,
it'd be pretty quiet.
Yeah.
I'd imagine they'd all just be sitting there watching.
Yeah.
I think the hardest thing for fans to grasp sometimes with offensive linemen is, and O linemen are number one to blame, the culprit every time. You'll never hear me blame another position group, another person, whatever, for anything like that. Just that's not the position we're in. That's not the position we coach. It's not the position we played.
Right.
But the things are that I think that linemen get blamed with sometimes that they're the culprits, but it maybe doesn't have everything to do with them. Sometimes they're snap count issues. So like false starts, is the count doing this and that, or the cadence. That's an off-season study we're doing at Drake, is just our cadence. How can we make our cadence better? How can we be more exploratory and be more aggressive and be more efficient to how it helps us up front as well as on offense with our cadence? Because I think that's a huge, huge thing that maybe gets overlooked, and I think that's something that the average fan doesn't think about either, number one. Number two is there's hold calls. I think holding calls are very subjective. Now, does holding happen? Absolutely. On every play, at every position. D linemen hold, linebackers hold, DBs hold, receivers hold, tight ends hold, running backs hold, quarterbacks, if they ever block, they hold too. Okay.
They hold the football.
They hold the football. That's right.
Can you get called for that?
But my point being is, like, holdings get called because of things that are going on. Yes, guys are lazy with their hands, lazy with their feet. Like, there's holdings that, in my opinion, are truly legit, and that's, like you said, a guy oversets, he gets beat inside. What's his last ditch effort? What's anyone's last ditch effort? Reach to grab on to whatever. But there's times where a guy is blocking a guy who's doing it really well, creating a nice pocket, and the quarterback wants to scramble, and he just takes off running. Well, to our point earlier, the offensive lineman doesn't always know where the quarterback is. He knows where he should be. He doesn't know where it is. And that's no one's fault. The quarterback's trying to make a play. The offensive lineman's blocking. He's reacting. Like, that's no one's fault. But that's just how it is sometimes. And I think that's the hard part for fans sometimes to grasp of, like, okay, yes, he might have been called for holding because he was holding, and there's no excuse for that. But at the same time, like, what was going on in the play that caused that? And I don't expect a fan to think that way, and I don't want them to think that way, because then they might take my job. But I just that those are the two biggest things: false starts, holdings, like, or stuff that goes on like that, because there's a lot of times that communication solves everything. And that's life.
I don't think I realized that until I started coaching receivers as much, because, like, as a quarterback, you're always just like, oh, what the damn, why are we doing that? But as a receiver, like teaching, like, bubble blocking, for example, like, you want them to press inside hip and then, keep pressing outside more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And then, a guy, bubble runner cuts it inside, but he's, trying to get him to go outside, and then he cuts back in. You're like, what the hell? And so, like, I didn't even realize that until I really started. Once you start teaching blocking, then you start to really figure that out, I feel like.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too, and it just popped up in my head, is like, there's the human element of the game too. Is that, like, I know as well as anybody, all the run scheme that we design looks great on paper because
Absolutely.
nothing on the paper's moving. It's like your job is contingent on the guy playing in that gap. What are you going to do when he moves, right? And then all of a sudden you're reacting to something that you may not have been anticipating. Like, one of the worst excuses I hate is like, oh, well, I thought he was going to do this. It's like, well, you got to confirm what they're doing post snap.
What did Dan McLaughlin ever tell you? The worst words in football, I thought.
I never heard that one from him. I heard some things, but
oh yeah. I remember he said that one time, and it's true. If a player ever goes, well, I thought, he's like, well, that's your first mistake.
Right. You got to react to the things you got to be great with your eyes post snap and really confirm things up. Yeah. But again, it just goes back to everything looks good on paper. You have all the coaching points. It's like, now you got to be able to apply those coaching points like this whenever there's movement or twists or pressure. Like, you got to be on your P's and Q's throughout the entire play.
Yep.
For you guys, I'm just curious, like, who are some of your favorite guys you've ever coached?
Oof.
And why?
Well, I was at a wedding over on New Year's Eve for a bunch of Ryan Kennedy. Ryan, it'd be in that boat just because from same area, he's reminded me a lot of myself as a player in the sense of what the position he played, how he played, and what we wanted to do and stuff like that. But that whole group that he had with like Alex Lindsay was there, and Alex and I are really, really tight. And Alex in one spring ball played all 5 positions on the line in a spring scrimmage, and he was only supposed to play left guard.
awesome.
Stuff like that, and I don't really know if I have any single guys out. Those two just come to mind because they were at the wedding I was at, and I got to spend a lot of time with them, and I don't usually. But everyone's special. Every kid you work with, if you're truly doing this for the right way, they're special. I've got high school kids that I coach that I still keep in contact with, and guys this year at Drake, I have a fantastic room. Had a fantastic room this past year, and I've got 15 of them. Be back this next year, and it's it's hard to say who are some of them and why, but like every kid that you enjoy wants to be there to play ball.
Right.
They want to be there because they love working. They love being with each other. And as a lineman, as a former lineman, and as a former college football player, everyone who's done it knows, like, you don't do it because, like, I love catching footballs, I love blocking guys. Like, no, you love hanging out with your buddies.
Yeah.
You love being there. You love doing the work and being with each other. And that's the biggest thing, I think. And the guys that exemplify that, and the guys that want to be around, and you truly tell, like, when they're doing something at football, that's the best part of their day. Those are the guys you want to be around. So, I don't know. Hopefully they're all like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like asking a parent who their favorite kid is, right?
Right.
ask my parents, I tell you. My brother.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's guys. I mean, we
Just kidding,
talked-
mom and dad.
we-
Just kidding.
we talked about Joe. I mean, special guy to that room. Mason. I mean, all those guys. I mean, you coach obviously 5 on the field, but you got 20 in the room. Any given year. I think there's special things about each guy, right? And the cool thing is, for the time that, I mean, this is the longest I've spent with a school and with a program. I mean, this class of guys that are graduating, you really, year over year, you get to see them grow. And sometimes that's not always as a football player. Like Lucas Bartacek, when I first got here, I mean, that dude was an angry, red-bearded guy like myself. And to see the growth that he made was really impressive too. Like, there's guys that you're going to come across, you're going to get them as freshmen, sophomores, younger guys who think that they know everything. But stories like that where they grow into, a leader on the football team, a captain, whatever. I mean, those are things that are awesome, but it's cool to see all the growth that has had, year over year, especially when you start to work with, the same guys during that time. And I mean, it's tricky now with, coaches move around a lot, right? But with the transfer portal, I mean, it doesn't hit us as much, but I mean, you may get to work with a guy for a semester and then they're piecing out for, $100K somewhere else or more, right? So to be able to work with 6 guys over 3 years, the same 6 guys in that class over the last 3 years, I mean, that's rare. I mean, at least for me, I don't know if I'll ever get to do that again with that big of a class. I mean, that's just what it is. Because there's a lot of attrition too. Some guys get banged up and they just they can't do it anymore. They, a variety of things. Again, the human element of the sport will come back to you, and sometimes guys fall out for whatever reason.
And I think the beauty of it is, you have at the schools that we're both at, we're non-scholarship schools too, and I think that plays an element in what's going on right now of the attracting the right type of kid. And you do this at every school, even if you give scholarships, stuff like that too. But attracting the right type of kid that, to what Alex said, like, is not going to be there for just a semester and then leave. If he's not going to go, he's not that you want him to, but he's going to be done playing football. Like, if that's why he's quitting, or why he's not going to be playing anymore, you'd rather personally see that than a guy go somewhere else because of whatever. Now that's an ego thing, and that's that's an offensive line thing of trying to make everyone feel good, because that's what offensive linemen do. We're all mama's boys and stuff like that. So, but you work with the type of kid, and if you recruit them the right way, and there's no surprises, and you tell them, hey, this is what it is, and this is how it is. I think that goes a long way, because a kid cannot come in and be like, well, I thought it was going to be different. And that was like, how did you think it was going to be different? We laid it out. You knew what you're signing up for, all that stuff. And I think those kids also help retain other kids in the room. and then there's similarities going back and forth with each other, because I know the group you had this past year. They're a tight group.
Yeah.
Like they're a tight bunch, and they are not all from the same high school. They're not all from necessarily the same area. They're a tight group.
One didn't even live in the continental United States.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Same thing with me this year. Our group, we have a really, really tight group at Drake right now, and it was tight before I got there. And I think we've strengthened it and tightened it even more. But that's why we did well this year. That's why we had a good group where we weren't bigger, we weren't faster, we weren't stronger, but we were meaner and we were tighter. We were more together. We solved problems as a unit, not as individuals. And going back to your point of guys you want to be around, those are the guys you want to be around. You want guys that want to be there for the right reasons.
Yeah. And I mean, naturally in recruiting, I don't want to speak for you guys. I mean, sometimes you get those surprises, and I don't know those if the room is built, culturally, the right way early on, those guys will kind of sift themselves out of the mix anyway, right? And I mean, it stinks. You don't, like you said, you don't want anybody leaving the program, right? You don't want anybody leaving the offensive line room. But sometimes those guys step away or kind of sift themselves out of it. It's for the best for everybody. If they're not, again, you got to be fully bought into the sport to play, college football, but especially offensive line, because you got to challenge your kids. You're really hitting somebody every play and trying to will people and protect the people around you. So, I mean, you got to be bought into that and the guys that you're surrounded with, and you want to be around them. You said that too, and I don't know if you guys or your offensive line had any traditions. I know, or I believe this tradition at Simpson, it's fairly common. Like they'd always do offensive line meals. They'd go to get dinner on Thursday nights. Yep. Those things to me are special. Those are the reasons why I love playing offensive line. Like we didn't necessarily do the same thing at Midland, but there's different things that we did, and a lot of it was we wanted to get to meetings early. So before Coach came in, we would all just screw around. We played those little things. Yeah, we played Sporkle. We would do sports trivia. In our meetings when I was a player. Sporkle's sports trivia. Yeah, it's a website. Interesting. I thought that was like a board game or something like that. No. It's a website. It's more than sports trivia, but we did the sports trivia one. I actually, one of our basketball coaches, he's right down the hall from us. So when I'm walking in the office, I peek in the office every once in a while to see how people are doing, and he had a catchphrase, the little turn dial thing. He had that sitting on his desk, and I had seen it enough to where I was like, Coach, why do you have that? He's like, oh, I hand that to one of the guys, before the meeting starts, and they play catchphrase before the start of the meetings. I'm like, that's awesome. Yeah, because they don't want people. That's something that we're working on. We don't want guys on their phone. Like when you get into the meeting room, our phones aren't allowed in our meetings. Yeah.
Well, last thing before we get you guys both out of here, for you guys both specifically, how do you guys define success in your respective offensive line rooms?
That's a deep question.
Yeah.
Deep question. Right. I think success, has many different faces, but it's to me, it's just having good kids, and what are they doing? How are they as people? How are they representing you, themselves, your logo, your town, your city, everything like that. Yes, you want to be successful on the field. You want to win games. That's great. You want to rush for a lot of yards. You want to not get penalized, not give up sacks, all that stuff. But you want your guys to be known as tough, and good guys, good kids, good players. There was a high school coach who talked about another high school program in Iowa that he said they're I think he said aspirin game or Advil game or something like that. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, all of our kids have to take 2 Advils after they play them because they have headaches from getting hit so hard. And I thought that was just an awesome compliment. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying you got to be, whatever, but I think success is defined by who you are off the field and how you play the game too. Like, be a representative of the game of football, playing hard with high character and leaving it all out there. I don't know. So
yeah. I mean, like on an individual level, I mean, going back to like just seeing the growth that you get from, or seeing the growth out of the guys that you've been working with, and it's not always going to translate onto the field, but like if you see a guy, has a little bit of a temper or whatever, has off the field issues, but he really grows into like a young adult that's like, man, this guy's going to go rocket in the real world. Like that's a huge success, right? And I think success also goes into like, what are you able to build that room into, right? I mean, the room that Q had done a lot of really good work with the guys that I ended up taking over
4 months
at Simpson. But I mean, I think I'm really proud of where that room is now. Again, by no means are we perfect. I mean, there's a lot of things that we still want to accomplish, but just seeing what the room has become, over these last 3 years and developing that culture, that's where I find the success, and that's where I take a lot of pride. Like I don't look at. It's good to go look at the stats at the end of the season and kind of review like where can we find extra yardage in scheme or technique, but like I don't try to look at the stats week over week during the football season to like, oh, are we going to hit like this rushing average or anything like that. That's not important to what the process is. And success is, again, like are you building young men to be the best possible people that they can be.
Yeah.
Damn. I love that. Well, I appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
It's great talking with you guys as always. You guys are the
You
man.
bet.
You guys are the men, the O-line men, right? Love that.
So one request I have, and you can put this on air, is for the third time that I'm on this show, and Alex, I believe this is your second time too.
Third.
This is
Now
You
third.
didn't listen to the lot.
Now third time.
no. This is now your third time.
Correct. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay. All right. Never mind then. I think if you're on here 3 times, you need to get a left hash call quarter zip made by Nike.
Or at least
Yeah, these are pretty slick.
those are nice. You should open up a line.
I should.
I'm surprised you didn't have like a hat set out too.
I know. I was going to, but then
all you media guys are all about product placement.
well, the problem is I had to wear my national championship hat.
You can't pack 2 hats.
No, it's one national championship or left hash.
He only wears one hat.
Well, you could cut it in half, so depending on which way you're looking at the camera.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah. No, absolutely. Hey, you guys, as soon as I get some new. Did I get you a hat?
No, you gave it to Drew, or maybe he
Yeah,
made him
I
pay
don't-
for it.
I
He
don't-
did pay for it. He did pay for it.
I
will
don't
say.
have a hat.
He has a hat.
Yeah,
I bought it too.
I don't have anything. So
Buy a hat.
I feel so bad.
Can
I
we?
feel-
Yeah.
We got to get the store open again. Like we just got.
Oh, so now I'm telling people to buy a hat and they can't buy a hat.
They can't buy a hat right now. I have. You could buy mine.
Are
It's
you
like
gonna-
there's maybe, I don't know if that's worth
it's
more
not
or
like this
less.
is live.
Yeah. Signed hat.
No, we just put this up as is. It doesn't matter.
Oh,
Don't
really?
edit it.
It's not
Zero.
on- we're not on X right now. Can you do live videos on X?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, we do the small school Saturday, and it's on X and.
Oh, I watch it on YouTube. So
Thank you. We like that one more. We like that one more.
yeah.
Anyways,
Well, I want to start texting to see if I can interrupt the show. How come you don't let me call in?
we I think
Their phones will be
Kobe could probably
flooded.
say we're trying to get one of the, like those red router, like the rotary phones that we could just it's like
Like
you
a
know?
Batman phone.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, seriously, appreciate you guys, recurring guests as always, and yeah, we'll have to get you guys some good gear here soon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Can't wait for
appreciate you.
my NIL deal.
Yeah, right. Yeah, me too.